So many people, especially anime and manga enjoyers, are likely familiar with the concept of catgirls. But one burning question that has everyone lying awake at night is, if they're both cat and human, what about their ears? The problem here is four or none, or more likely four or two. So the defining trait of a catgirl, without question, is the neko ears. But one must wonder, is that all there is? Having an otherwise human form, it would be quite strange if catgirls had nothing behind their cheeks. Is it just an extended face? But this question can't be easily answered because most media deliberately hides the catgirl's portrait with hair, or simply just by having them turn around, which makes it really hard to decipher such an issue. You'll actually never see behind the catgirl's cheek. Let's look at evidence for two ears. The following examples contain evidence for catgirls only having two ears. Just cat ears, says Sayori, the Neko Works CEO and lead illustrator. Written by the anonymous author and illustrator known as Sayori, Nekopara is widely acclaimed for starring all catgirls, and its portrayal of catgirls is often used as the base for all other media that features catgirls. So in a lucky Twitter thread, Sayori was asked about the catgirl ear problem, and her response was simply just cat ears. This confirms that, at least in Nekopara and according to Nekopara lore, their catgirls have only cat ears and there is nothing behind their cheeks. Furthermore, from what we could see, Lynette Genshin Impact also has no human ears. This hasn't been particularly confirmed, but it's pretty obvious just by looking that there are really no human ears, and we can actually use this to assume that this applies to all other Hoyoverse catgirls / anthropomorphic characters in their respective universes, such as Nekomata in Zenless Zone Zero. Now let's look at evidence for four ears. The following examples contain evidence for four ears. So the Blue Archive girls are shown with both sets of ears, which can be kind of disturbing if you look too closely. So it's uncommon to actually see these, but for some reason Blue Archive proudly shows them. We can see Shiroko here has ears, and her cat ears. I think she's actually a wolf, but this still applies. And so does her over here. Carrie from Princess Connect also has human ears. However, in her lore, her specific species is considered a beast folk, which seems to be a race consisting of human and animal hybrids. In the first slide, we defined catgirls as Nekomimi, so technically one can make the argument that Kari Princess Connect is not actually a Nekomimi in the general sense, and instead an entirely different species within her Princess Connect universe. However, we can still see that she has two sets of ears. Let's look at a quick debunk on fake catgirls. So a lot of people think that when a catgirl is shown with both human ears and cat ears, that they must not be real catgirls, but just cosplaying with accessories and hairstyling. Let's take a look at Kiara from Genshin Impact. So a lot of people aren't actually aware of the difference between a Nekomimi and a Nekomata. In the first slide, we define Nekomimi, which is the type of catgirl we're discussing. We can see Kiara here has two sets of ears, but she identifies herself as a Nekomata. So in Japanese folklore, a Nekomata is a cat yokai formed when a lost cat grows old in the mountains and eventually transforms into a yokai. In traditional lore, a Nekomata tends to have two tails and is significantly closer to feline than human. The earliest depictions of them actually lack cat ears, but they're said to have the ability to morph and alter their form freely between human and feline, which gives them the physical ability to have both sets of ears. So in this case, let's not get Nekomimi confused with Nekomata. This is what fake catgirl hairstyling would look like. Another example from Genshin Impact. So catching Genshin Impact is a good example of what doing one's hair to appear like cat ears would look like. It looks a lot different. You don't see the fluff and there is no curve. Okay, I've heard the argument that Blue Archive girls are quote-unquote not confirmed cat girls / not confirmed wolf girls, whatever, okay? I'm not quite sure what to do with this information. Some people say they're just fake, but I will point out that in Blue Archive, the animation, Episode 1, Abydos High School Foreclosure Task Force, which premiered on May 25, 2024 at the timestamp 6 minutes, 38 seconds, and 8 milliseconds on frame number 734, Serika's ears flattened down to her head. So let's calculate her weight. This is going to be important for what we're going to do in the next slide, where we're going to prove that she consciously moved her ears without external force. So, Serika is 15 years old. She's about 153 centimeters according to the wiki. Typically, the range for this height and age group falls between 40 to 50 kilograms or 88 to 110 pounds. Now this is a rough estimate, but we need to be way more precise, so let's use the BMI index message, which is weight, BMI plus BMI, height, okay, all of that. To estimate her weight on height and age. So her height in meters is 153 centimeters. Her BMI range would be 18.5 to 24.9. So for the lower weight range, she's probably about 43 to 58 kilograms. The median for that is about 110 pounds. So we're going to assume she's about 110 pounds. And we did this by obviously using the BMI index method for her lower and upper weight range. So why does this matter? We're going to prove that she consciously moved her cat ears, thus proving that she is actually a cat girl. So not confirmed cat girls, right? So now that we have Serika's weight, which is 110 pounds, let's calculate the amount of weight which is made up by her cat ears. So assuming Serika's ears are roughly proportional to her size compared to a real cat, we can scale up the weight accordingly. And an average cat ear is about 10 to 15 grams each. So considering she's human, let's scale that up to 20 to 30 grams each. That's about times 2, which gives us 60 grams in total, or about 0.014% of her total weight. Now let's assume the area of the ear is about 10 centimeters in length and 5 centimeters in width. Given an area of approximately 50 centimeters squared, the pressure needed to flatten human cartilage is about 5 to 10 newtons. So if we assume the pressure needed is about 10 newtons for each ear, then the force calculation would be as follows, which is 10 newtons divided by centimeters squared times 50 centimeters squared equals 500 newtons. We have 2 ears, so let's double that and get 1000 newtons. However, human ear cartilage is very flexible. We're not moving cinder blocks here, so we can actually scale that way down, giving us about 20 to 40 newtons of external force to squish both ears. Now, was it the wind? No, because the wind speed required to generate 20 to 40 newtons to squish both of Serika's ears is approximately 57.15 milliseconds, which is about 205 kilometers per hour, which is a Category 3 hurricane. Now, let's remember, in this scene, she is in a classroom. There was not a Category 3 hurricane. Thus, the only way this could have happened is if Serika moved them herself. And given the proportional strength of these muscles in an anthropomorphic character, it is clearly within her capability. Therefore, we have officially proved that whatever species Blue Archive girls are, they are confirmed cat girls or wolf girls, okay? So this could also lead us to concluding that human ears and cat ears on one character does equal a real cat girl, okay? It's not just hairstyling, nor is it cosplay. So given this, you're probably wondering, well, okay, so which one is the correct one? Here's my claim. Catgirls only have cat ears, and this is why. Let's look at the hard truth, which is the science. Despite what's been shown in fiction, it's actually anatomically impossible for catgirls to possess both human and cat ears. So basically, even if a genetically engineered catgirl existed, they would not have the structure necessary to fit the two organs internally. The cranial nerves, particularly the vestibulocochlear nerve, which is responsible for hearing and balance, would have to be literally duplicated twice or completely altered around in a way that is not present in any known mammal. And this would make hypothetical catgirls only practical to have one set of ears, which would be cat ears. So if they were natural, let's assume catgirls always existed, evolution would prevent such a conflict. And if they're genetically engineered, the most practical option is to fit them for just cat ears. So here's a graph right here. We can see this is the vestibulocochlear nerve right here, which would need to be completely removed, duplicated, and connected, which is literally not possible. There is no such thing as this happening in earthly organisms. Now let's look at the neurological impossibilities of catgirls having 4 ears. First of all, auditory processing. Each ear sends information to both hemispheres of the brain. So if two different types of ears exist, the brain would need an entirely new network of pathways to handle and integrate these signals without causing signal loss. This is such complex neural wiring that it's currently impossible and doesn't exist in any species. Furthermore, human ears are only able to hear 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz, while cat ears can detect frequencies up to 65 kHz. The brain would need to differentiate and integrate these different frequency ranges simultaneously, which would require an unprecedented level of neuroplasticity and processing power. And finally, since humans use binaural hearing, which means we can just hear where things are coming from given our brain signals, cats actually turn their ears to hear where things are coming from. So if catgirls had both ears, integrating these two different systems would lead to such conflicting spatial information that it would probably be impossible for them to even stand up straight, and it would be impractical for neural adaptation to resolve. Let's explain this visually. So basically, for auditory processing, this is your brain, this is an ear. The neural pathway brings the sound across the brain and tells you where sound comes from. And this is a cochlear nerve. So basically what would need to happen is this. You would have to have neural pathways connecting all four ears and somehow processing them and centralizing them all at the same time when sound comes through. Frequency impossibilities. So let's just say you had cat ears and human ears. Your cat ears would be able to pick up on sound that the human ear couldn't. However, your brain wouldn't know how to actually process this because one ear would be picking up sound that the other ear didn't. And this would completely confuse your brain and probably just result in complete deafness in the first place. Like you wouldn't even be able to hear in the first place because your brain wouldn't know how to process two different sounds at the same time. Now sound detection. This is very simple. Cat ears move to hear sound, human ears don't move. Brain doesn't know where the sound is coming from. And finally, cat ears only is much cuter. Okay, so imagine it's the year 2070. The first generation of cat hybrids are now available to the public and you just adopted a new cat girl. One day, you are chilling on the couch with her watching anime and you decide to pet her head because she's a cat girl. Now suddenly, you brush some hair away and realize, oh my god, those are human ears? You stop patting her head as you try to process this. Yeah, master, what's wrong? She turns to you confused, but you don't know what to say. Is she really a cat? Which ears does she hear with? Is this a cat girl or a girl cat? But she has a tail. Shouldn't this mean she has 4 eyes too? Are the cat ears even real? Did I get scammed? Is there even such thing as animals with 4 ears? What have we created? You have 4 ears, you tell her with a shaky voice. She's silent as her eyes widen and she rushes her hands up to the side of her head, feeling her human ears, and then moving up to feeling her cat ears. She already knew she had both sets of ears, but hadn't quite realized how strange it was until you pointed it out. Her face goes pale as she begins to question her life. Is she really a cat girl? Is everything she's taught been a lie? What about head scratches? Is something wrong with her? Is she more human than cat? Is she even cat? Now, you are both left confused, scared, and worried. You don't know what to tell her, and she's going to have to live the rest of her life with an identity crisis. If only she had just cat ears. Conclusion. In conclusion, having only cat ears is... Catgirls have only cat ears because it's both practical and cute. So combining both human and cat ears would create numerous neurological issues, such as conflicting sound signals and difficulties in brain processing. It would be impossible for the brain to handle 2 different types of auditory inputs. In addition, the absence of human ears simplifies their anatomy and contributes to a unique, playful, and universally endearing appearance. And therefore, the portrayal of cat girls with cat ears only is the perfect balance between adorable design and practical limitations, which makes it scientifically possible and cute. Let's look at some bonus clarifications, because having just cat ears creates even more questions. So let's answer 2 of the most frequently asked questions. How do headphones work? For earbuds, this question is easily answered by just looking at Judy Hopps from Zootopia. The real ear canal is actually inside of the head, so it works exactly the same as humans. You can just put them inside of your ear. And the same can be said for catgirls, of course. Now for actual headphones, we have a few options. This Twitter artist called Reen created headphones specifically designed for catgirls. They seem to be shaped like the catgirl ear. And the manga Catalyst Syndrome employs the easiest solution using just flexible headphones like Beats. As you can see, you can just turn them upside down and bend them. How do glasses work? Thanks to Catgirl VTuber Girl DM's clever solution, this is no longer a problem. Just put a band-aid there. Also, glasses with the band to wrap around the head would work perfectly too. Now, since somebody thinks that I used AI, here are my works cited. I'm not going to read through all of this, but you can take a look. And finally, thank you for watching.